New Year to you. Welcome to the Buddy Martin Show, a Thursday night edition. I know some of you are still watching football, the Tax Slayer Bowl. Watching a lot of football these last couple of days, folks. I'm watching a lot of football. If I'm like you, I'm getting a little weary, but I still love the game. It's great. And the big upset today, I say upset, I don't know if it was upset. The Georgia Bulldogs couldn't compete against Notre Dame in every way. Out-coached, outplayed, out everything. It looked like Georgia was Notre Dame and Notre Dame was Georgia. They got to give it to the Irish. They're well coached and they played well, and they out-coached Kirby and they outplayed the Bulldogs. So down to one team now in the SEC as the semifinals are coming. We'll talk about that tonight. Ben Troupe will be joining us shortly. He'll give us his take on things so far. Talk about Georgia, talk about what's going to happen to Florida, the semifinals, and then also what has happened to SEC dominance. Do you think it's changed forever now? Look at the records. 7-7 in postseason with a couple of games to go. Well, we'll see what happens. So come join us tonight. Glad to have you on the program. Our guests will be here shortly. We'll take you up to there. All right here on the Buddy Martin Show on a Thursday night. The Happy New Year 2025 edition, our first one of the year.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
What if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye!
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
And welcome to the program. All four top seeds are out. The 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th seeds move on. Is it like you thought it might be? It's different. You like chaos, you got chaos. Now we have Notre Dame, Penn State, Ohio State, and Texas. Looks like a good Final Four, but not the big seeds gone. Let's go right to the hotline and talk to the maestro himself, Mr. Ben Troupe. Happy New Year to you, Ben.
Happy New Year, buddy. Yeah, buddy.
You're having some fun up there in Georgia now.
Hey, look, so I mean, number one, the tragic events that happened on yesterday is something that really gets on my nerves. I don't like the fact that people use big opportunities, big gatherings, whether it's a sporting event, entertainment, whatever it is, to try to make these statements. 15 people lost their lives, countless others are injured. That's the part that we have to do better at, not just, if we are police officers or people sworn to protect and serve, but come on, man. The whole see something, say something, we have to, always have that in the back of our minds, because there are people that could care less about a sporting event with lost loved ones because of to say it was senseless, it doesn't even begin. So our hearts and prayers definitely goes out to the many families that lost loved ones, have loved ones, dealing with the tragic events of yesterday. But buddy, the college football playoff, I will say this: I don't know if they got it right, but they didn't get it wrong. Like, I don't know if they got it right. Who knows? I don't know. Who knows, buddy? We'll never know, right?
Yeah.
But it was fair, and the reason why I say it was fair is this: if you are, Georgia, Notre Dame, and the way that game went down, obviously, Gunner starting to get the start. Carson Beck. Beck. He's he obviously went on IR, getting ready for the draft. Notre Dame is always playing for something different, buddy, because they're one of the biggest brands in sports.
Yeah.
College, whatever you could, because they don't have to work. They're in the ACC, but they don't have to, go to an ACC championship game. They just have their regular season. When you talk about a team like Texas, you talk about branding. I mean, the brand that is Texas, the lone, and ain't it crazy? Didn't win the SEC first year in the SEC, go to the SEC championship game, only lost to Georgia. The lone SEC team left, in this college football playoff. Penn State, Coach Franklin, always playing for something different, buddy, because just like Ohio State hasn't beaten Michigan lately, Penn State hasn't beat Ohio State lately. And then there is the Ohio State Buckeyes, arguably the most talented team.
Certainly,
left in the tournament. Maybe even the most talented team in the country. When they're playing like that, it's going to be hard to beat them. But in a one-game tournament, anything can happen. And you go from Notre Dame. You talk about viewership. You go from Georgia, Notre Dame to Notre Dame, Ohio State. I mean, that's going to be crazy. And now you got Texas, Penn State. So, to everybody that made it into the tournament, made it to the college football, whether you was Tennessee, Boise State, I don't SMU, Clemson. I don't like when people say, "Oh, some blowouts." Okay, those type of things are going to happen. But, buddy, when you talk about what the college football playoff has done in year one with 12 teams, certain games weren't as good as we thought they were going to be. But like I said, there's no way to get it right when you have that many college football teams.
It's work in progress. So just to go back on a couple of things you said, because you threw a lot out there, which is good. Let's get back to the initial comment about tragedy and about what happens with sporting events. I've lived with this my entire life, from the Olympic Games to what have you, JFK's assassination or whatever events taking place being put on. And I don't think there is a formula for it. But I know that I was the first thing, you probably had to not play the game last night. And I'm glad they didn't. I can't even speak of the horrible thing that happened in I've been to that place, very spot, many times in New Orleans, many times. And to think how vulnerable that crowd is. And I think about the nights I was in New York when they dropped the ball in Times Square. If they had something there, they'd kill millions of people. And you go back and think about how you just can't put it in perspective. So there's nothing we can actually say or do about that. But I think you have to do what's best for you. You have to pay homage to the people that died and were injured and make sure you do that. But I think also, if you don't go on, the terrorists win. If you don't keep on going, then they win, because their whole thing gets you out of your lifestyle, change your life, make you make decisions, let fear take over your life, and it does take over your life. So RIP to all those 15, 14 people who died. Horrible thing. Sports has been our way of getting out of this thing when this happens.
Yeah.
After tragedy. And I hope we don't use it, like you said, but also if you don't go on for what you, then your way of life has been altered by terrorists. That's one thing. Back to the Notre Dame Georgia game, I was wrong. I thought Georgia was going to be more physical and faster than Notre Dame. Notre Dame's got some talent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They play hard, and that young coach, Marcus Freeman, he out-coached Kirby Smart.
He did.
That last play on that offsides, that's the oldest play in the book. But his guys didn't jump in. Georgia did and gave him.
Yeah.
That's a play they know better to do that. So they got beat by a team that I don't know if they were better than Georgia or not. But, Georgia was better than them or not. But on this night, Georgia played like Notre Dame, and Notre Dame played like Georgia. And so there you have it. So now here we got. I was wrong. So let's give it up for them. So tonight on the program, we'll get your take on that. Franz will join shortly. Then we'll get Loren Meadows. Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Texas. You got one picked out yet?
Woo, buddy. I will say this.
You don't have to pick tonight. I'm not going to make you do that.
But I will say this. when you start talking about Coach Freeman, Notre Dame, and the type of pressure he's under. I mean, when you get to talking about the brand that is Notre Dame, then you get to talking about the brand that is Ohio State, the brand that is Texas, and then Penn State is a big brand. It's not as big as those other three, but it's up there. It's up there. You know, you got 4 coaches. That's all coach. You know, I mean, if you are Coach Sarkisian for Texas, you know what it would mean to win a national championship in Texas, to put your name up there with a Mac Brown. If you are, Coach Franklin, obviously he got his claim to fame winning at Vanderbilt, making Vanderbilt a contender.
Yeah.
In the SEC. Now he's up there at Penn State. Somebody did say it. With UGA losing, was it Michelle? With UGA losing, that means that no conference champion will win the playoffs this year. And I've always been a proponent of, just because you win your conference championship doesn't mean, you're going to win it all. You talk about Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State is about as big of a brand as you could be.
They're good.
In sports. And like I said, when we get to talking about, what all 4 of these coaches, what they up against, Coach Franklin, Coach Sarkisian, Coach Ryan Day, it's gonna make for some really, really good football, because nobody can hide now. Coach Freeman, Coach Day, Coach Sarkisian, and those guys, Coach Franklin, nobody can hide. And once again, people are gonna say, what if when it comes to Georgia, where everybody's dealing with injuries? There ain't a team in this tournament left that didn't have to deal with injuries, right? Mm-hmm. It's about what do you do, on the biggest stages, when everybody's watching, and it's a 1-game tournament. And some of the games, you go back to the Boise State, Penn State. Okay, they're gonna shut down Genty. You knew what they were gonna do. Texas and Arizona State has been the best game thus far. I mean, double overtime.
Arizona State, props to them. They did a great job.
They really, and their coach said it after the game, buddy. They said, listen, didn't get the result that we wanted, but we proved that we belong. And I think, buddy, sometimes that's what certain schools are trying to show. Like, look, man, we belong. I go all the way back to Indiana. SMU. All right, so they got beat. But there's going to be a winner and a loser. Now you get style points for how you get beat. No, sometimes that, as the great Herm Edwards said it the best, it's, it's not how you play, it's who you play when you play. Who did you play and when you played them? And but shout out to all 14.
Arizona State was a Cinderella story, and I got to give them props. Scatterbo is a hell of a player, and that team fought back and played terrific.
They did.
They kind of validated the playoff system a little bit, because these are the games you thought, it's a mismatch, whatever. Well, it wasn't. Let me ask you a couple of things. Tonight we're going to talk about this subject with all of our patrons and here online, and also our folks, our visiting professors. Franz Beard will be here, and Loren Meadows. And the question becomes on the table is, has the SEC lost a step? I mean, look at the numbers. They're 7-7 right now in postseason. They're got Texas still alive. They've got Ole Miss playing in the Tax Slayer Bowl, leading 17-7. But they're 7-7. Now, all these people said, we ought to have 4 teams. It's kind of hard to say that. Now, I don't necessarily judge the whole league because of it, but it's a factor. That's number one. And I want to read this tweet. I forget who wrote it, but I did copy that. I must say it's interesting that the fall of the SEC's dominance, and make no mistake, that did happen. The fall of Alabama and Georgia coming back to normal all happened as soon as every team could start legally paying their players. Get that? The message there? Yeah. And that's a good point. They can start leading. All of a sudden, they didn't have that edge anymore, right? But all 4 top seeds are gone. And now are we better or worse for it? We don't know yet, but we'll see. I like what you said. They got it wrong. So you're correct on that. And we will get to you. Also, let's go ahead and address the issue of the SEC. Now, I'm thinking maybe we got a little lightheaded and dizzy and drunk on success, and a little bit arrogant about the SEC in terms of because it's all you. If you're going to judge by what happens on the field, you got to judge it. But it's so dominant in many ways, but it's not what we thought it was. Ben, what happened?
Hold on. Well, buddy, it's the gauntlet. It's the gauntlet. When people say SEC dominance, okay, you got to look at that a lot of ways, right? Why is it when the SEC is in bowl games and they lose, it's big news, right? Oh my God, the SEC, but when they win, not as big. Because the SEC, no matter what, buddy, is the barometer. Take nothing away from the Big 10, take nothing away from the Big 12, take nothing away from the ACC, take nothing away from the Pac-12. The SEC is the barometer. People say it's SEC bias. Why is it that? Well, look at it. Who are the most recognized coaches in college football in the SEC? What is the most recognized championship game in college football? SEC championship game. Who has the most draft picks in the drafts the last 7-8 years? That would be the SEC. So you talk about college football and post-collegiate football, that being the NFL. Now, does that mean the SEC can't be beat? No one has ever said. And here's the thing: there aren't that many bigger brands in college football than Texas and Oklahoma. What did they do? They were fine where they was at, right? They came over. They came over to the SEC. Now, buddy, I get it. When you hear SEC dominance, people start saying, "Oh man, these SEC schools, man, people so biased when they come against them or whatever." This, that, and that. No. We're not saying that the SEC is the best brand of football, right? We're saying it's the most dominant brand of football. Well, it is. The proof. Here's the thing, right? You don't believe me? Okay. There was a guy by the name of Joe Burrow. Where did he start off school at? Ohio State. Where did he end up at? LSU. Guy by the name of Jay Daniels. Where did he start off at? Oh, he started off over there where? In Arizona State. Where did he end up at? LSU, right? And I say that to say this. There is something about the SEC, buddy, that either you love us or hate us. And that's, to me, that's all branding. When it comes to great brand, like the Dallas Cowboys, you either love them or you cannot stand them. But the brand is what the brand is. I think when it comes to the SEC, buddy, people get tired of hearing about the SEC. They get tired of hearing about this and hearing about that. Well, just beat us. Beat players in teams in the SEC, which Texas right now is the lone SEC team, regardless of what happens. But, buddy, SMU was the first team ever that I can remember when you talk about paying them players now. What? They got a documentary on SMU about paying players. So it's not like the SEC started this paying player stuff. It's just that now, buddy, when people say it's, quote, even, which it is, as even as it can be with 12 teams, now, because it's not so top heavy, you got 2 Big Ten, schools still left in it. And obviously you got, a ACC school and an SEC school, even though Notre Dame is essentially ACC. But I'll never understand the same reason why people like the SEC is the same reason why people don't like Kansas City. People get tired of seeing a consistent winner. They get tired of it. As much as people talk about greatness and dominance, why was Coach Spurrier hated when he was at Florida? Because he always won. He won consistently. He won a lot. People didn't like him because they couldn't beat him, right? And they didn't like the fact that he was actually successful in what he's doing. With the SEC, it's the same thing. Urban Meyer, college football Hall of Fame coach. What did he talk about all the time? He went to Ohio State. What did he talk about? Florida. Nick Saban won at Alabama. He said, "What's his biggest regret? Wish I never left LSU." This is why he's at Alabama saying these things. So, yes, I am biased, being playing all 4 years in the SEC. But buddy, bias is when you just saying stuff and it's not true. Bias is when my son is in a competition that I'm judging and he just gets first praise. That's bias. But what if my son is the best player there? He just happens to be my son. Because, buddy, just like I know, buddy, the SEC, it's not hype. See, people think it's all hype. Is it? Is it all hype? No, it's not. And regardless of what happens now, it doesn't take away what the SEC has been and what it will be. The reason why the SEC was kind of, quote, down this year is because you're not going to have any undefeated teams anymore. They're going to beat up on each other, right? They're going to beat up on each other. Here's the thought. And yes, this is my real bias. How many people want to play Florida at the end of the year? Not many. And that's any conference. They did not want to play them because of how they finished the season. But is it biased that the team that had the hardest conference, that had the hardest schedule in college football, regardless of conference, went 8-5? They went 8-5. So Indiana went. Indiana lost one game. I'm just saying, and when they finally played somebody, they got the doors rolled off.
I got you. I hear you. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm going to bring fans aboard here and let him address the issue. Whether the SEC has slipped a notch after this postseason record. Now 7-7. They're going to be 8-7 after the Taxpayer Bowl, probably. But I do think it's something to think about and saying, sometimes you get over your skis a little bit. And the SEC is a fine conference, probably still the best, but didn't have the best of postseasons. And we'll talk about that as well. So let me also tell you about, if I may, about our fine sponsors. And everybody knows Meldon Law. If you don't know Meldon Law, well, you're missing out, because there are people that are really, really good folks, and they also support the University of Florida. Jeffrey's involvement with the band. Jeffrey's involved with the Gators, and of course, also they do practice law, and they have a couple of places for you to go around right near us. One in Gainesville, one in Ocala, one in Wilson, and one in Lake City. If you have any needs for things like reviewing your case, maybe you're not happy with yours, and I've had that happen to me, they'll take it on, look at it, and tell you before you need to go next. They also want to let you know that if they can't get what you need, they can't give you what they think you need. They'll get you to somebody who can. So Meldon Law, you need to check them out if you need any help. Meldon Law, they won't back down, and neither will Sir Francis Beard. Good evening. Happy New Year, France.
Happy New Year, guys. How's life up in the big city of Savannah? And where are you, buddy? Are you in Peace City today?
I'm in Panama City today. Yeah, we're all good here, and all good. And I know Ben is kind of going to be strutting around tomorrow. The Georgia fans not going to be too tall. They didn't, And by the way,
listen. People are already. I'm not going. Am I going to troll? I'm going to troll a little bit.
Of course you are. Yes, you are. That would be.
I'm going to troll them. I'm only going to troll them and say,
yeah,
you got a good backup. He's just not. His name ain't DJ.
I know that's a lot of people saying that. Ain't DJ. Well, I know Franz. What's that old thing? What's dilemma is watching your mother-in-law go off a cliff in your car. That's where Franz was today for these two teams. But I think if he had to pick one, it probably. And by the way, Georgia was very much a better team, deserved it. I'm impressed with Marcus Freeman. I'm impressed with how his team is coached. I'm impressed how he outcoached Kirby. And Georgia had a great season. They just weren't up to par. They didn't have all their pieces. And a lot of people are taking great joy, friends, in Travis Etienne's lack of success, his fumble, etc. What's your take on all that, Francis?
I think that Georgia's at a crossroads. That they won 11 ball games this year. It's good for them. As much as I despise Georgia, good for them. But as we found out, they've got to come up with a quarterback. They haven't developed one, and they're going to have to come up with a quarterback. This kid, Gunnar Stockton, was a terrific backup. But as Ben just pointed out, he is a backup quarterback. This is not starting quarterback SEC caliber. Georgia doesn't have a quarterback. They've got a freshman coming in who is not DJ Lagway. They don't have any speed at the wide out for the most part. They got one guy that can run, but he can't catch. They led the country in dropped passes this year. Their offensive line, as we saw, which is supposed to be so good, really isn't. They couldn't run the ball, and if you got a great offensive line, you should be able to run the ball. They're going to lose a lot of defensive players, and that's not to say they're going to be gone and down forever, but they're at a crossroads that teams hit a plateau, and we've seen that before. You hit a plateau, and if you don't have the personnel, particularly at quarterback, to make the leap over the speed bump, let's call it, then you've got a possibility to flatline and just be good for quite a while. And Georgia's been recruiting well because they've been winning well. But what happens now, this is, I said before the season, I thought they'd lose 3 ball games. Didn't know that the third would be necessarily in the playoff, but I thought they'd lose 3 ball games. Thought they could lose 4. And you know what? If DJ Lagway doesn't get hurt, I'm not sure they don't lose 4 games this year. I'm not certain that they don't make if DJ gets hurt, they don't make the SEC championship game. I think they're at a crossroads. I really do. But I think there's a lot of teams in the SEC that are going to be at a crossroads unless they can find a quarterback. Let's look at some of the teams that are going to have quarterback issues. I don't think Texas is, but Oklahoma certainly does. Arkansas has got this guy Taylor Green, and he can run like a deer, but I don't think he can throw it well enough to win games. Missouri's losing Brady Cook. Kentucky is a disaster at quarterback. Tennessee's got Nico Iamaleava, or whatever they want to call him. And I don't think you can win a championship with him. Lenora Sellers showed what he showed in the bowl game, that he's not going to win games with his arm. He's going to have to win games throwing the ball. So you go all around the conference, and guess what? Florida looks really darn good next year.
I have to agree with that.
Because the Gators have a quarterback. Alabama, who they've got at quarterback for next year? Ty Simpson, Ty the guy, or whatever you want to call him, Ty the knot.
Yeah. I think you're on to something there, Franz. I want to just jump in if I may, probably for interrupting you. But looking at these bowl games now, and of course now Ole Miss is up 24-7. Team that Florida beat, by the way, let's remember that. The bowl games they played in, all things considered, and yes, it was Tulane, and Tulane wasn't very good in a lot of the departments, and Shane said they had the worst quarterback he ever seen. But the fact is they took care of business. They had a great win. They had a lot of fun doing it. And they're all kind of squared away now for next fall. And things are going well there. I don't know what the final damages will be on the portal, what is naturally, but I think Florida did well because things can go wrong in the bowl game. And I think maybe Georgia also may have had a bit of fatigue. It's a long season. You start adding those games in.
They had a month off, Bud Light. They had a month off.
Yeah.
A month. Now,
yeah.
Let me interject one thing. Every team that had a bye lost.
Mm-hmm.
Every single team that had a bye lost.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Now, what does that tell us? For one thing, it tells us that you're rewarding the teams that were given the best shot with a loss.
Yeah.
And you're rewarding teams that don't give it, that didn't make it, with a chance to warm up and get going.
Yeah.
Do I think that Ohio State, if Oregon had played a game, because you get past that first quarter, Oregon wasn't that bad. They couldn't block anybody.
They were undefeated and top seeded, though. That's
but,
the thing.
Like I said, there's a lot of tweaking that has to be done. For example, you got teams that are in the playoff that are having to manage getting ready for playoffs, the most important games of the year, and they're competing with teams that did not have this problem for people in the portal. They're having to re-recruit their own guys,
right,
and everything. College football right now, I got to tell you what, it's a mess, and that's the best thing I can call it. It is a mess. And I didn't think I'd get to this point, but I don't mean to sound really cynical, but I am. Look at what that we've done, and could it have been avoided? Yes, it could have been, because 3 or 4 years ago, they had the perfect opportunity with the COVID year to leave the NCAA and put football people in charge of football instead of idiot academics like the previous president and the current president of the National Communists Against Athletes.
Okay. All right, now let me get to one point here. Ben's back with us. They had the Under Armour game today. I didn't see it. I saw a couple plays. I saw where Florida's wide receiver looked. I mean, a fantastic play, and then did a kind of a half somersault, half whatever he did, backflip, whatever. I think David Baldoff was there today. I read a couple of. I saw a play of Brown. I saw that one caught pass he caught. I guess they look really good. If anybody's got a report here, pop it on here, David. I know you, David Baldoff. I know you went to see it. So if you got anything to say, post it. We'll put it up here. So just catching up with that. Now Ben is back. All right, back to the issue, whatever you want to call it. Looking at it through the long lens, Florida. I mean, the SEC isn't what it was. Is it because the other teams are better? The leagues have changed. There are better teams out there than there used to be. What is it exactly? Or is it the old thing of playing the schedule and getting beat up after playing a tough schedule? Ben's already waited on this issue a little bit, and we can diagnose it all we want to. The fact is, let's see if I can find Ben again. The fact is that there he is. There's back. That fans way into that. Let's be honest about it. Has the SEC kind of slipped a notch?
They had a bad year, but you look at it like this. We were saying the same thing a few years ago when, let's say, Ohio State played Oregon for the national championship. Everyone was saying, well, boy, the SEC's slipping. But they came back. And here's the difference. When the SEC reloads at quarterback, the SEC will be fine.
That's a very good point, because when they rose to fame, I remember I had a guest on, and he said to me, the SEC's got some great years coming up, and they got great coaches and great quarterbacks. That's where they're going to have to go. They got pretty good coaches in most places, and the QBs do make a big difference, don't they?
It's the single most important position in all of sports. Mm-hmm. Why? Because he's the guy that controls the offense every single play. Yep. And if you don't have a guy that's capable of delivering under pressure, you know, Stetson Bennett got a lot of crap. I probably gave him plenty during 2020. But he took what he learned in 2020, and in 2021 and 2022, here's a guy that was an outstanding, and not a good, he was outstanding college quarterback because he could deliver under pressure. And this is the thing that people tend to look at quarterback like this. Did you throw for 8,000 yards and 64 touchdowns? Not necessarily. You don't have to. But what you got to do is you got to be able to take your team down the field without mistakes. You got to be able to gather them up when they need to. You need to be able to get in that huddle and take a lineman, take that left tackle like the one that kept whiffing for Georgia. You got to be able to stick your hand in his face and grab his face mask and say, you got to get the job done. They're killing me. And rally everybody else on the team because they respect you so much to sit there and say, you get the job done and tell me if you need help. I'll help you. Yeah. Okay. You've been in huddles like that. Rex Grossman would grab somebody by the face mask and tell them either get the job done or get the hell off the field.
Yeah. Let me get to a point someone asked Ben earlier. It's a valid point, and I know how he's going to answer it, but the fact is that Georgia's quarterbacks are left-handed and right-handed. Everybody talk about what a terrific kid they had back then. This kid was going to be something else, and they were just as well off a quarterback. He wasn't as skilled as a starter, obviously. Ben, on the spin of the ball, lefty, righty, I've heard this debated and argued. Does it affect you that much when you catch it?
It does. It does. Especially if you're a lefty, because most I've never played with a left-handed quarterback, and Chris Sims, Phil Sims' son, who's obviously following in his daddy's footsteps right now. When I was with the Tampa Bay Bucks, I used to sit there and catch with him with a ball spinning the opposite way is different. It's not that you can't catch it. It takes getting used to. But I think Franz make the best point when you say every great team has two things, or two or three things. Either they got a great coach, they got a great quarterback, or they got a great coach. If you got all three, you got a shot to win the national championship. But you need at least two. And the two you want the most is the culture and the quarterback. You want both of those. When you talk about Georgia and what happened today was no team wants to go to their backup and be in a position to where you got to depend on them. Now, if it's a game, you throw them in there. But when you got to depend on them, because no matter what, nothing hurts your recruiting more than when the starter goes out, the backup comes in, and he doesn't get it done. What's the greatest thing when Alabama went away from the running game and when they went to throwing the football, they went from Jalen Hurts to Tua. How did they introduce Tua? In the national championship game. Now, I don't know if anybody not named Nick Saban is going to pull a 26-2 starter for a true freshman. Now, it worked out. It did work out. And I think the thing about Georgia now, or teams like Georgia, is the reason why we talk trash about Stetson Bennett is because Stetson Bennett is a very, 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 very small dude. I mean, Bryce Young thinks Stetson Bennett is small. That's how small Stetson Bennett was. But his game was through the roof, the way he played. Now, when you start talking about what teams are going to be lacking, if you ain't got the quarterback, you better hope you got a team around him. Because if not, you're going to have good seasons, not great seasons. And I think that's the thing about the SEC is the SEC was so good at one point, the quarterbacks were okay. But then all of a sudden, you had a string of quarterbacks coming through there, like year after year after year after year. I'm sitting here looking at, and these are the ones I can remember, just national championship winning quarterbacks: Stetson Bennett, Cam Newton, Tim Tebow, Chris Leak, Tua, Burrow, Mac Jones. Like you had them coming back to back, and they was coming. That's each year. Now you might have an outlier. Now does a guy like DJ Lagway, can he be that guy? Yep. And I think the one thing Billy Napier has done is said, look, man, if the most loved player on any football team is the backup quarterback, as long as they don't play, it's always put the backup in, put the backup in. Now when the backup goes in, you want to see if they work.
Always has been.
Yeah, but I think now with did the SEC have the year that everybody thought? No. Does that mean that the SEC isn't still better than some of these other conferences? Yes. Does that mean that the SEC is well represented in the college football playoff? Yeah, they got one team left. They got one team left in it. But I also think that when you start talking about the SEC, they understand they're not going to win. Listen, with the court of public opinion, people can't stand the SEC, especially if you got to play against it or you got to try to get viewership over it. And I get that part. But and I'm not rooting for Texas like people be doing. I'm not rooting against them.
Yeah.
But if Texas wins it all, if Texas wins it all, what they gonna say? Is the Big 12 gonna be saying, well, they used to be with us? Like what are they? Because you know how it is, Franz. When it comes, the SEC bias though. Most conferences they only talk about football. It's SEC bias in basketball. That's the ACC. It's SEC bias in baseball. Don't even talk about track and those type of sports.
Gymnastics, track, baseball, softball. Oklahoma's in our league now, and look at this. You got Oklahoma and Florida in the same league. Tennessee and Alabama are really good too. Track and field, swimming, we got Texas coming in, and Lord have mercy. I hate to think what Anthony Nesty could do if Florida had a decent pool. We got the worst pool in the SEC, and yet look what we keep churning out. This is one of the problems when we decided to put lipstick on the big pig, also known as the O-Dome, rather than turn that into the indoor facility and build a new arena with a decent pool. But anyway, that's another story for another day. Meanwhile, back to football.
Yeah, go ahead.
You got to. The SEC is having a down year. In 2014, the year that Ohio State won for Urban, who were the quarterbacks in the SEC? Can anybody name one? I don't, and that's where your issue is. Go back to 2020 and look who the quarterbacks were in the SEC. There were a lot of them who were really, really good. If you got quarterbacks, the other thing that happens, buddy, is when you got quarterbacks, you attract the quarterbacks great quarterbacks are magnets. People want to come play on a team that's got a quarterback because players understand that if you don't have your trigger guy, I can be the greatest offensive tackle in the world, but if I'm blocking for a guy that in his next life is going to be milking cows by hand, I'm not exactly gonna be thrilled by that. I'm gonna look for someplace that's got a guy that's gonna be playing real
Let me
football.
jump in real fast, Franz, before we bring in our final co-host here, Loren, on a couple things that sets us up. Number one, something very, very important happened on this day many years ago. Don't answer if you know. We'll talk about that. Something very, very similar to Gator fans. Big happened, okay? Think about that. I've got the way, 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 way too early Heisman odds, which you want to hear about. And then, did anybody have a better playoff than Cam Scatterbo? I mean, unbelievable what he did, his numbers. So stand by while we tell you about our friends over at Titan MRI. And then we'll bring in Loren. We'll continue this conversation right here on the Buddy Martin Show. Thanks for joining us. I want to be sure to tell you there's been a change over at our friends at Titan MRI. Familiar faces come back, and they've got more significant things for you, the patient, than you ever had before. Another location to serve you, and they also will take your insurance now. Which is good. They have a way of helping you get what you need to have. So I want to tell you about the folks who are Titan MRI, now called Titan MRI and Imaging. It was acquired by Highfield MRI, and Joe Coloria started Highfield MRI in 1997. Now he's back. And Titan MRI and Imaging has 3 locations, 2 in Gainesville with its Park Avenue location, and now the Millennium Center. 1 in Lake City, serving you in Columbia County, and also in Valdosta, and pretty soon there'll be one in Ocala. Titan MRI and Imaging offers the same great customer service, accept insurance, their convenient self-pay options, and they go for MRIs, CT scans, X-rays, etc. If you need any of that, check them out. Titan MRI, now Titan MRI and Imaging. And with that, we'll go right back to the guest. Let's see where he went here. Hold on a second. Where did Loren go? There he is, right there. Our buddy Loren Meadows, and we're going to say good evening. Happy New Year, Loren.
How you guys doing? Happy New Year.
Yeah. Anybody want to take a guess at what happened pretty big many, many years ago to the Florida game on this day? Franz?
5-2-2-0.
Yeah.
And the year before, 60 to whatever. Same day.
Now, wait a minute. Don't start that.
I'm just saying.
No, you come bringing that in here.
Right. Hey, I do want to say something, though, before we get started. I love how people, Ben, who played in the NFL, caught balls from a left-handed quarterback, and then we got somebody saying that they interviewed Mike Vick's receivers. Well, Jerry Rice has been on record saying that he basically threw the arm out of the equipment manager of the 49ers, who was left-handed, because he couldn't catch Steve Young's left-handed ball. So if the greatest receiver ever had trouble catching left-handed balls, I don't care what Mike Vick's receiver said. Don't be smug, man. You know, listen to the pundits, listen to the guys that been in the locker rooms and that kind of thing. And there we go. Happy New Year.
Yeah. All right. All right. Thank you, Loren. And by the way, let's go ahead and weigh in on the situation with the SEC. Has not been the greatest thing in the world. So we had everybody else weigh in. Loren, what's your take on it?
I just think it's the new normal with the transfer portal. You got guys going from SEC schools, the other schools that are enhancing the rosters. I agree with Franz. The quarterback play. I mean, it's some really good quarterbacks in the SEC, but I just think it's one of those years. It's I don't necessarily see a trend here. Obviously, the playoff has allowed teams to get better as the season has gone along, but the SEC is still the dominant conference. Still, you're going to look at the draft, like Ben said, and it's going to be littered with some of the best that the SEC has to offer. So I just think it's one of those things. I'm not.
It is something that we were pretty smug about them to get deserving of 4 teams and all that, and they didn't perform well in there. With one team left, that's Texas. But okay, that's your opinion. Listen, it was Franz. You're right. 28 years ago this day, Gators won their national championship. We were there that day. And it's still probably the greatest day in college football for Gator fans. So, I'll get that. Now, also, I want to get your takes on this. I know it's way, 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 way too early for these kind of things, but interesting to see the early line on the betting line on Heisman Trophy odds. Okay. I'm going to give you guys a chance to see. You should be able to get probably 3 of the first 4 or 2 of the first 3. So who do you think the number 1 prospect is? Who wants to go on the Heisman for this year?
For next year?
Yeah, this fall. Who is it? Anybody? Arch Manning. Okay, he's
for what school though?
Be there. He'll be there. He's a guy.
But
that means the Ewers is not going to come back,
right?
Or Ewers wins the national championship, decides to come back to play college football. He goes to UNC so that Arch Manning can play for the Burnt Orange.
We'll see how that works out. But the fact is, now, do you know this guy who's in second place? His name is Napier.
Yeah, just transferred to Oklahoma. He's from Wazoo.
Okay,
and he is one serious dual threat quarterback. He's big time.
Well, he better be able to beat Navy next year.
Right. So Buddy, after the Heisman odds, I want to circle back to something real quick.
All right, so Napier, and then third, DJ Lagway. Okay.
Yeah, I believe that.
He's ahead of ahead of Garrett Nussmeier. So here we go. Now, those are some odds for you. Go ahead, Loren. You want to circle back?
Well, you were kind of talking about, I just want to kind of reemphasize the point that I'm making is Quinshon Judkins, arguably the best running back in the SEC last year, is now at Ohio State. And Caleb Downs, arguably the best free safety in the SEC, is at Ohio State. That's the points I'm making is that because of the transfer portal, they're losing some of their best. Some of the best players are leaving. So, when you look at the rosters, they're littered with former SEC guys. So, I think that's why, when you talk about the conference, it speaks to just how deep the conference is. That's all I'm really saying.
All right, go ahead, Ben.
Well, even sticking with that, the thing about it is, right? Everybody, I get it. The SEC is polarizing. So when things don't go well, everybody's going to chime in.
Right.
Everybody's going to have something to say about it when you start talking about it's a down year. But here's the thing, though, right? Why don't these SEC players transfer within the SEC? They don't want to deal with. If I'm leaving, I'm getting the hell away from the SEC. I'm getting up out of here because I know how. Number one, I know how hard it is to make it on a roster on the team I chose. I want to go somewhere to where it's not that it's less talent or it's less difficulties at Ohio State. But if I can make it here, I know I can make it over there. And that's nothing against these other schools that they go to, right? Because I just think that when it comes to the SEC, one thing about even this goes back to when I was at the combine, right? The SEC bias ain't like it is. It wasn't like that back then. But I got the same question. Hey, man, yeah, you play a Rex Grossman, right? Yeah, how he not win the Heisman? I don't know. Because when you talk about bias, is there a worse bias on in college football than is on Florida quarterbacks? Because I thought the last time I would see a bias was, Rex Grossman. Here come Kyle Trask, right? So it's just one of those things to where if you played in the SEC, you understand what it is.
Here's the thing, too, is 2008, even though the stats don't prove it, Tim Tebow was 3 times the quarterback he was the year before when he won it.
Exactly.
I remember at the Heisman vote, and this little dipstick from the Dallas Morning News she says Tim Tebow would be the 5th best quarterback in the Big 12. And I just looked at her. I said, lady, I will forget more football in the next nanosecond than you're going to know in the next 55 years. But I hate to tell you this to your face. Go back to doing columns about bake sales because you know.
Oh no! You can't say that.
I'm here for it, Franz. There you go. I'm here for it, bro. I'm with you.
You can't say it that.
Yeah.
We got some guys on here that need to be going to bake sales too. But
you ain't lying. I mean, we're gonna start having bake. We're gonna start having bake sales.
I think Franz ought to have a bake sale himself. As a matter of fact,
They need to have them up at Florida State to raise some money because they're broke.
Hey guys, let me get this here real fast. Latest, we all know about the Cam Ward controversy, guys not playing, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of versions of the story out there. You wonder who made the decision. He was pulled, and then of course he didn't come back in after he got the record. Was he just saying there for the record? Supposedly he and Cristobal had a conversation about it. Now the story comes out that he didn't play in a single snap during the second half of Pop-Tarts because he had his helmet taken away. I did see this helmet be taken away. I will say that. So that's never been brought up. But the worst thing he said was, well, that's a private matter. We're not going to bring it up. Well, you know what happens? When you don't bring it up, you don't tell us, you get all kinds of speculation. So you're going to just take the lumps when you do that. When you close it out. That's private. All right. Then everything is fair. Go ahead. That's the latest information on that particular thing there. All right. So let me get to this other thing. Jalen Milroe, gone to the NFL draft. I hate to say good riddance, but I mean, so what? And then this kid Nashon Montgomery, apparently is really burning it up in the Under Armour game. I didn't see him. Maybe you did. All right. Cam Scatterbo, 2 things. Cam Scatterbo over here and Notre Dame over here. Say what you want about Notre Dame, but they do have cheer for a Notre Dame song. Their school does matter a lot to them. They embrace it. They love it. They play for it, and they have a team, and they got a coach who coaches the team. Boy, Cam Scatterbo, I had no idea he was as good a player as he was. You know his numbers were against Texas? 30 carries, 143 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 99 receiving yards, 42 passing yards, 1 touchdown pass thrown, and a 2-point conversion. My goodness gracious, that's amazing. He was an amazing player.
1,711 yards and 21 touchdowns this season, and they list him at 5'11", 215. And I got to tell you what, he's maybe 5'9" in his cleats. And of course, most people play ball in their cleats. Last time I checked, he may be 5'8", and he's probably 225. And he reminds me, buddy, of a guy that you remember covering way back when the Dolphins went undefeated, right after the Dolphins went undefeated.
The bowling ball?
The human bowling ball, Don Nottingham.
And Ocala. I guess he's still there. He ran an insurance agency there for a long time.
5'8", 230, and was like a human muscle. I mean,
Scatterbo's built. He's
Don Nottingham would do push-ups and his ears would flex. I mean, that's how muscular this guy was.
I don't think Don was throwing any touchdown passes. He did a lot of other things. I saw him play.
But this guy was Don Nottingham wasn't as good as this guy. I don't know.
I agree with you 100%. Did you, Ben? Did you see much of him?
I did, but I'm over here. Hold on, whoa! I'm over looking at these. I'm over here looking at some of these, some of these messages over here. What is it? It says Cam Ward identifies as a winner. We have to be careful what we say about him. We don't want to get hurt. And then it says somebody he didn't want to get his knee blown out. Look, the Cam Ward situation, because I have weighed in on it again. There is no such thing as private matters that happen in public.
Right.
That's a private matter. No, it's not. And why is everybody gonna get hurt in the bowl game? I didn't get hurt in the regular season, but that bowl game, man, that might. I've never. That bowl game might be. What are you talking about? Like, and the whole thing about look. This is nothing against Cam Ward. Cam Ward's gonna have to do whatever Crystal Ball and them say. It's just weird. It's just super duper weird.
You want me to tell you what it is? I'll tell you what it is. People opt out and do stuff like that because they've got an agent saying, I'm going to give you X number of dollars. And technically speaking, still under the guidelines of the National Communists Against Athletes, that's illegal. So they say, okay, opt out. Next thing you know, the next day after they opt out, they're driving a Mercedes. Okay. That's what goes on. That's what's gone on in the past. That's what everybody who opt out. I mean, you go back to Florida at the Orange Bowl back in 2019. We had All-American All-American DB who opts out. Next day, he's driving a big old car. Didn't have one the day before. Got one the day he opted out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it looks like I get a new car. I might opt out too. You never know. But all right. So here we are. I don't know exactly where this is going to lead to. We mentioned the top seeds all got beat. I think Franz, did you say all the bye teams got beat? Is that what you said?
Every team that had a bye got beat.
Yeah. So and it's too early to make an evaluation, but in the final minute or so here, let's talk about, I think Ben's comments we're starting with. There's good things about the playoff. There's bad things. So let's just pick it up there, Loren, and give us your evaluation of what you've seen so far on these playoffs and where you want to see it go, what to finish off strong.
Well, I think it depends on what you want to see. Upsets happen, losses happen, but I mean, you're going to have a winner and you're going to have a loser. I mean, I think that, it's like, well, what did you want to see? Did you want to see certain teams? Did you want to see the top 4 seeds make it to the final 4? What were you looking for? I think the point was that you could have those that were in the top 4 not make it, and that was the good thing. So I think sometimes, what were you expecting? I mean, we got a great Final Four with some really top notch. I mean, you got blue blood type programs, Penn State, Texas, Ohio State, and I mean, so why wouldn't you want, I mean, you got what you got. You're gonna have eyes on the games. You got an SEC team in there. You got Big Ten teams in there, and you got Notre Dame, which is an independent. Shout out to Marcus Freeman. And I mean, what did you expect? I mean, this is it. I don't understand why we're looking almost like looking backwards. Like, what could they have done better? You got 4 teams. You had some decent football games, and you didn't have any. We're talking about Scatterbo, and SMU got rolled, and maybe Georgia didn't play as well. But you got the story of Scatterbo. You got James Franklin, kind of his narrative. You got Marcus. I mean, you got all these things. Here we are. I mean, it's going to be, you're never going to get what you want, and we'll accept it in the NFL. But now that we got a playoff in NCAA, it's like it doesn't look the same as before. And I don't understand. You got 4 teams. Here we are. We'll replay it again next year. They probably won't get the top 12 right again, or maybe they will. But at the end of the day, the cream is risen to the top. And I think our own Rob Brown said it best. This is a long game here. So looking at it when the playoffs start, or even when the season starts, is not the way you look at it. It's who can handle 16 to 17 weeks of football and handle it the best. I mean, I like it. I'm fine. I'm here for it. I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to the next four. I mean, the final four. I'm excited.
All right, Ben, you want to tweak your comment earlier?
No. I'm gonna stick with it. I said with the 12 teams, you didn't get it right, but you also didn't get it wrong. Because when you talk about 12 teams, right? But I also can agree with Loren. Some people are just looking for chaos. And I said this. A college football playoff with 12 teams is going to end up just like the NCAA tournament. You're going to have some great stories. And what was it, a couple of years back? Wasn't it Miami, San Diego State, UConn, and somebody? Who won it all? UConn. Because some kind of way a blue blood is going to rise. And all you need is one. Now, you got four. When you talk about Texas, that brand is huge. Is Texas bigger than Ohio State? Maybe not. Is Penn State bigger than Ohio State and Texas? Maybe not. None of those are bigger than Notre Dame. None of those. Texas, Ohio State, or Penn State is not bigger than Notre Dame. Notre Dame has a freaking movie about a fictitious character that people believe is true. I'm just saying that's what But I do agree with you, Loren. It lived up to it. We learned about the goal is to learn about players you never saw. Because they play at 8 o'clock. Well, that's 11 o'clock on the East Coast. That's the only reason why Christian McCaffrey didn't win the Heisman. He had better numbers that year than Derrick Henry. Well, we ain't up to watch him play. Now we get to see about players that we didn't get to see. Because if we are SEC or Southern College football centric, we're not watching past Michigan. We ain't watching games past that. So I think I am happy with the end result. And if your team didn't win, that means they got beat by a better team or got outplayed by a better team. But you move on, and nothing will expose recruiting more than what you lack in the big game. In the big game,
okay, you're all right with you're all right.
But I'm like Loren, I'm here for it only because when you start talking about these teams and what we got to see, people started rooting for Genty in a losing effort to still get the record. That doesn't happen with our college football playoff and him being seen today. We talking about cats that play for Arizona State that ain't Polynesian. They got these crazy last names you can't even pronounce. I'm happy for college football, and I think that if people saying, I'm gonna say, listen, the Franz Beard way of looking at college football, it is idiot proof. It is dummy. When they kick the ball off, all that other stuff don't matter. It really the transfer portal, how much money somebody got. I am happy for college football, and if your team is still in it, they have really run the gauntlet. And there's nothing like saying who was the first team to win when they went to 12 teams. Hey man, you got some great representation right now.
Let me ask you this before Franz goes, buddy: is how do we champion the Villanovas, the Florida Atlantics, the Syracuses with Carmelo Anthony, the Danny and the Miracles? We love those, but we don't like the upsets in college football. That's what I'm saying.
We might eventually. We haven't had them there, so we're not used to that life in the SEC.
But we really got the four best teams still. I mean, in some way, shape, or form.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Okay. Well, that's. Go ahead. Franz is out of time. You can close the stone. I hear you, Loren.
Well, here's the thing that I'm looking at is we've got issues with college football. We don't have anything that isn't correctable, but we better correct it, because the one thing about it is small issues become big issues when you sweep them under the rug. And the NCAA has been famous for kicking the can down the road, or some people would call it sweeping it under the rug, which is what my grandma would have called it. The NCAA is famous for that. And we're past a point where we can do that. I think the playoff needs to be expanded by 4 teams. That way you can have 8 conference champs, 8 at-large teams, no buys, everybody plays the first round, and it becomes more like the playoff. Now, what's that? If you did that, you could get most of the bowl games you could get most of the bowl games that involve something other than a bottom feeder in there. And you could say, truly then, that Cinderella's fine. I have no problem with a Sun Belt team winning a game or 2. That would be fabulous. What I'd love to see is somebody like Alabama having to go to play at Dwight Perry Stadium in Bowling Green, for a playoff game in Ohio, 22,000 seat stadium in Ohio. Loren knows this one. This is in Bowling Green, Ohio. That's a big ball yard. Alabama looks at that and says, well, where's the stadium? but I'd love to see, if we're going to really embrace college football moving forward, let's do some things and you want to make it fair for everybody, then do something like that. Make it fair for everybody.
All right. And be careful what you ask for. All right, guys, great job. All three of you. Thank you. We're all up and running in 2025, guys. Let's go. Ben, I'm here. One, let's go from you. Come on.
Let's go. Because that's what I'm really finna say. Let's go to, buddy. In 2024, I didn't really wear my Braves hat. That's not happening in 2025.
Hey.
buddy.
Spring training starting soon. Pitchers and catchers.
Friends and Loren. Let me tell you what Buddy do. Buddy will bust up on here with a Marlins hat. He'll bust up on here with a Tampa Bay Rays hat. I'm just telling you, buddy. This 2024, I was on my best behavior. 2025, I got a brand new set of them. And
no choice. Your team
the Rays could win big this year. You know why? They're going to be playing in the Yankees facility.
Yeah, I was just going to ask.
Tradition is going to rise up and lift up the Rays. Sure. But it takes the Yankees to do it.
Well, the Rays are the best team. The Rays are the best team money can't buy. Okay,
that's a nicer facility than what they play in now, right? Isn't it?
It is. By the way, speaking, they're going to be playing in Tampa. Which Major League Baseball player playing in Tampa holds the minor league record for triples in a season? And the number's 30.
I don't know. Can't think of that right now.
Deion Sanders.
No.
No, Wade Bond.
Rose. 30 triples.
Charlie Hustle.
Minor league season.
All right. Well, that's slow through
with the Tampa Tarpons.
Thank you for that. We'll show you later. All right. Thank you, guys. Great job. Good. All right.
Rest in peace to P. Rose, by the way.
All right.
All right. See you guys.
Go and take care. Good night, Loren. Good night, Franz. All right, folks. Let me tell you about my good friends at a company there in Ocala, which I do treasure and revere. They are special in every way. They're great at what they do. They also are great people, and they're helping us with our health. And that's Renstar Medical Research. They're really big on any kind of clinical trials that we do, especially ones that are well guarded, protected, ones that are done at a high level of professionalism, which theirs are. And they do have constantly some kind of clinical trial going on. Guys say well over 800 of them over the years they've been there. And they're doing this for themselves and for us, for the health of people in North Central Florida. If you can get involved in one of these clinical trials, and they have them for everything, like measles, mumps, et cetera, and you get involved and you take part in it, they send you certain special medications or sometimes equipment. And they basically want you to go through the trial. It's not a long deal. It doesn't take a terribly long time to do it. And you get paid for time and travel if you qualify for it. And they get that data and send it out to the companies that deal in things that we didn't know about regarding our health, the numbers, et cetera. Great people, great friends, Joe Sorrentino, Mary Brownlee. And by the way, Joey, his son, has a terrific new dental business there. Not all that new now. Joey has Marion Dental in Ocala and Lady Lake. If you need some kind of dentistry done, and I plan to see him in a couple of weeks. So good people, good things happen, and be sure and check them out. Go to redstar.net and find out more about what they're doing. They're doing good things. You did good tonight too, folks. Appreciate that very much for you hanging in there, and to our guests and sponsors. It's always good to have them on. This will be our last show of the week. We'll pick it back up on Monday. We'll know more then. It's been interesting. I'm a little football weary, but bring it on. Let's do some more. I'm okay with that. And after all, that's what we asked for, and we got it. So have a great night. We'll see you in a couple days.